Everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football updates channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Sunday night slash evening, depending on wherever it is that you're joining us from. We are here to keep tabs on the game between Real Madrid and Deportivo Alves, which is still goalless after about 14 minutes are played there. But also we'll be digesting what's transpired across elsewhere, particularly in the Premier League for match day 16 with only one game left to eat. That's between Manchester United and AFC Bournemouth. That does come on Monday Night Football. I will get to see what Manchester City have done against Crystal Palace. Really, there was perhaps an undesirable result for Newcastle, as well as that's against Sunderland, and then which we, by the way, predicted, as well as one between Brentford and Leeds United, which was the late kickoff for Super Sunday. So indulge me. Oh, Jesus Christ. As we go through tonight's session, really. For those of you that were part of yesterday's broadcast, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your contribution. Thank you so much for your input and everything that you made happen as we did the watch along for the game between Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers. We'll have our own say about that particular fixture. Arsenal very, very unconvincing, very, very wanting in their 2-1 victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers, a game in which they didn't score. For the first time this season, Arsenal went through a game without scoring. Yes, they still won, and that's maybe the funny thing, but they did not score a goal. No goal would be credited to them. Oh, Jesus Christ. This is not intended. All right. We will get to this perhaps on another occasion. Really. Anyways, as I speak, it's a quarter past the hour of 11 p.m. East African time here down in Kampala, where it's a bit of a cold evening following afternoon downpours during the course of the day. Looks like the rains are back. I think for the last 3 consecutive days we've had some fairly heavy rains, perhaps some heavier than others, but yeah. To all our new subscribers and community members, we say welcome to the Football Tribe UG channel, and we hope that you will get to enjoy your stay with us here on the channel and you contribute towards our growth, towards our self-sustenance. As we speak, we have about 2,684 subscribers. So thank you so much for all of you that are dedicating your time to watch what we do. Where do we start it all? Because a lot has happened, and yesterday we did not get to review all the results as they did transpire. But I think we can start with today's results, and then we possibly will deviate into the other games from yesterday. Meanwhile, the game between the game between Levante and Villarreal has been postponed. I do not know particularly why. I don't know particularly why that was the case. UK 6432 says he's alone Bastian Schweinsteiger. Oh, do you like Bastian Schweinsteiger? One of the very best of footballers there from the Bundesliga. Had a stint with Manchester United. I think at the time when they were still under the charges of Louis van Gaal. Very, very successful player there. Bastian Schweinsteiger, also from the German national team. So, anyways, do let me know where you're joining us from. Do leave a like on the broadcast, but also if you're new here, do not hesitate please to click that subscribe button. But here is what transpired in the course of today, in as far as the Premier League is concerned. Manchester City, continue with their winning ways in convincing fashion, perhaps more than most in terms of their other title contenders and things like that. Yes, German Nuremberg, okay. Nuremberg or Nuremberg. I hope I pronounced it well. So, whereas I had predicted Manchester City to win, I don't think I had predicted that they would make it look as simple. Now, let the result not persuade you into thinking that it was a simple fixture for Manchester City. It was far from that. Now, our prediction was that Manchester City would win the game by 2-1. And had Crystal Palace been clinical with all their chances, we would be perhaps or possibly even discussing a totally different result from today. But, it is what it is. It's I always say this, that football at the highest of levels is a game of small margins. If you do not take your chances, then you will get penalized on the other side when your opponent takes their chances. And practically, that's what really transpired today. I brought Erling Haaland picking up a brace in that one. I opened the scoring in the 41st minute to give Manchester City the halftime lead. Released. He came back in the 89th minute to score from the penalty spot. To make it 3-0. But in between there, Phil Foden had scored to make it 2-0. That was in the 69th minute. That was all released. Crystal Palace were missing all their, best chances of the game because, to be fair to them, they had a better XG in terms of expected goals compared to Manchester City, even though Manchester City expectedly dominated, possession in terms of being dominant on the ball, as you'd expect them, to the tune of 62% compared to Crystal Palace's 38%. So really, it's only fair. But when it came to shots on goal, Crystal Palace had a total of 16 shots on goal. Only 4 of those were on target. Really, Manchester City had 7 on goal, and 6 were on target. So, like I said, the result in itself, if just look at it, you may think, it was a routine victory for Manchester City, but it was far from it. Crystal Palace, first of all, will be very disappointed in themselves that they did not get to score in this fixture. I think coming into this game, they had scored, I think, in their last 5 consecutive games or thereabout. And 2, they will again more pissed at themselves that they did not even get a point out of this fixture because they were very capable. Regardless of what the possession figures look like, they created some of the best chances of the game. They were just not clinical with those chances. So, and that's how Manchester City got their big win away to Crystal Palace. That means both teams from Manchester have gone to Selhurst Park and won a game of football there. With Man United about a fortnight ago going there and winning by 2-1, released. Manchester City won by 3-0 as Brad Erling Haaland took his personal tally to 17 goals of the Premier League after 16 games played this season. I mean, he just knows where the back of the net is, and it's that simple, really. So the penalty incident came from a foul from the goalkeeper, Dean Henderson, for the foul against Savinho. Crystal Palace failed to make a decision on who should pursue a 50-50 ball that was earlier on in their control before Savinho races off with it for a counter, and he gets fouled in the area by Dean Henderson. He's given a yellow card, and they concede a penalty, which brought Erling Haaland steps up and he converts. So basically that was it. And it finished 3-0 as Manchester City earned all 3 points, keeping a clean sheet, but also reducing the 5-point gap that Arsenal had created following the 2-1 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers, reducing it back to a mere 2 points. But also, maintaining the fact that they are the most scoring side in as far as the Premier League is concerned. They have scored, I think, 38 goals up until this stage in the season. Then in the other game, still all these games kicked off at 5 p.m. Tottenham Hotspurs were obliterated by Nottingham Forest, who beat them by 3-0. Callum Hudson-Odoi picking up a burst there, scoring some immaculate goals there as they beat up against Tottenham Hotspurs by 3-0 with Ibrahim Sangare, the other gentleman on target for Nottingham Forest. I mean, it's not very often that you see a Shondaichi team score 3 goals without a response. I mean, and I think this is the second time that they are doing this season. Because you remember they went away to Anfield and beat up against Liverpool by 3-0. So they've done it against another top team, or quote unquote, top team in the sense of their history, not in the sense of their current form whatsoever. So Tottenham getting beat by 3-0. Yes, they dominated the possession, but their XG was really, really poor to reduce to a mere 0.3. I mean, that's really, really horrible. So 15 shots on goal for Nottingham Forest, with 6 of those on target. Tottenham only had 1 shot on target. Really, they had a total of only 6 shots on goal. That's how poor they were on the day in terms of their execution in the final third. And I did not get to watch this game personally, but I mean the result, there, and the statistics from the game really, really say it all. Then Sunderland were 1-0 winners against Newcastle. This is a game we had predicted that they would win. Initially, I was skeptical of Sunderland's process, but then I remembered it is a derby. They have something to fight for. We're talking about a team in Newcastle who beat them, I think, back in 2024 in the FA Cup. There's something they had to respond to. I said this before, and I will say this again, that I'll say this again. Derbies are the kinds of games that are sort of a trump form. Oh, wow, what a goal. What a goal. Kylian Mbappe gives Real Madrid the lead against Deportivo Alaves. I mean, what a beauty of a goal that is. Kylian Mbappe just can't seem to stop scoring. Had he been for their game against Man City, maybe they would have picked up a point in that game. Really, I mean, Jesus Christ, that's a beautiful goal. That's a beautiful goal, really. Let's see. Did Adagula commit a foul in the build-up? Rodrigo Goes, there, I think, providing the assist for Kylian Mbappe, who goes on, beats his defender and puts the ball into the roof of the net there. Beautiful, beautiful goal there. Back of the net, did not hit the roof of the net. But yeah, beautiful goal there, you would expect. So Sunderland, I mean, it's just a good result. A good result for Sunderland in as far as today was concerned. Hi, Pedri, how are you doing? Congratulations on your victory yesterday. Not the perfect squads that we had both predicted, but at least Rafinha getting back on the squad sheet for Barcelona must have excited you yesterday. I like your dress. Okay, thank you so much there. So really, unfortunately for Newcastle, they conceded an own goal by Nick Voltmada, which turned out to be the match winner on the day. And that's it. It's a game of fine margins, and it was not different from that today. But they needed to be solid. Sunderland needed to be rock solid in their defense to ensure that they saw out, that result against, against their arch rivals in Newcastle. Pedri says it was a good win, but it reminded me of the Eintracht Frankfurt game. Yeah, I felt like it wasn't a convincing win. It was far from convincing, pretty much like we saw in other games during the course of the weekend. But yeah, it wasn't convincing, but again, for me, like I keep saying, whatever you do to win, for as long as you win, especially when you're pursuing a title, is all you take. You take the 3 points and look forward. Look to do better, because no matter how you look forward to do better, if you do not keep posting those points on board, then your opponents are bound to catch up with you. So, but in order to win the league, you just have to win whatever the score is. True, that's true. Sometimes you're not going to have a good day in office. You may have to grind it out. You may have to win ugly. You may have to get some decisions go your way. Particularly for me, I thought that goal, when the game was still 1-0, should have stood, in my opinion, because it was not an intentional foul on Joan Garcia. It boiled down, in my opinion, to a coming together of two players. There's not an intent for the Celta Vigo player to cause foul against Joan Garcia before they scored that goal. But, the referee made his decision. He called it as a foul, and the goal did not stand. And then shortly after, Rafinha went and, scored what was the second goal on the other side. So, really, Barcelona will hold their heads high, and knowing that that is another set of 3 points in the back to keep their distance a bit fair away from Real Madrid, who have been struggling in their last couple of games. And as we speak, they are leading by 1-0. That goal scored by Kylian Mbappe against Deportivo Alaves, a game that they must win to stay in that contest over the Spanish La Liga. It's match day 17. Anything can happen. Do you think Alves can make a comeback? Now, in football, anything is possible. Unfortunately, you are not here with us last night, but I was with a gentleman called Tyler Mead when we were doing the watch along for the Wolves and Arsenal game. And I remember telling him that I had a feeling Wolves were going to score, given how Arsenal behaved in the aftermath of getting their goal. They tried to, we'll get to digest that game deeper later on in this podcast. And while I was still saying it, they scored. And he could not believe it, because his submission was that he did not see a way back for Wolverhampton Wanderers. Unfortunately for Wolves, they did all the good and the bad, in as far as that game was concerned, So really, excuse me. So anything in football is possible. So anything in football is possible. Somebody is trying to call me, but allow me to put this out of the way. I don't know. Feels like it's a call I need to take, but I don't know. Okay, I've read that comment. Let me see if. Allow me make this call. Very unprofessional, but it's something I need to do. Hello, Wanji. Kari, Niku broadcast. I'll call you back. Kari. So sorry about that. I just needed to make sure somebody got home safely. Anyways, so yeah, anything is possible. Deportivo Alaves can come back in this game. It wouldn't be the first time that we see a team come back against Real Madrid. So yeah, but let's hope that won't be the case. I know Barcelona fans will be rooting for Deportivo Alaves. I've also been reading reports over the course of the weekend that apparently Xabi Alonso was told if he doesn't win this one, it could be the end of it for him. But like I said, very beautiful result for Sunderland against Newcastle in the Trinity-Wear derby there. The Black Cats really, really deserve that victory. First of all, they're still unbeaten at home, and they continue with that. The statistics say it all. There wasn't too much to separate the two sides. Both had an XG of 0.29 and 0.25 respectively. It's not fancy. A total of 5 versus 6 shots on goal for Sunderland and Newcastle respectively, 1 and 2 on target. It was well balanced out, really, really. Even the ball possession was marginal, 54 in favor of Newcastle to 46%. For Sunderland, everything was marginal, really. It was typical of a derby of two teams that neither wanted to lose the fixture. And eventually, as luck would have it, it went Sunderland this way with that own goal from Nick Voltmada, which came in the 46th minute of the game. I mean, Robin Rolfes, that's the Sunderland goalkeeper, was the man of the match. That's according to the Premier League website, so that tells it all. Then the other game came between Aston Villa beating up against West Ham by 3-2. Our prediction had been that Aston Villa would win the game by 3-1, but yeah, they won it the hard way equally. West Ham did not make it easy for them, but they still found a way to win. Morgan Rogers, man of the match with a brush on the day, scoring in the 50th minute and the 79th minute there to win it all for Aston Villa. I think as they won their 9th consecutive game, I think 9th or 10th consecutive game across all competitions. They are that good. They are the hottest cake I think there is in European football at the moment. Fernandez did score to open the scoring for West Ham. Then they made it. That was in the 1st minute. Gerard Bowen scored to make it 2-0 in the 24th minute. Sorry, Fernandez scores in the 1st minute, and then Konstantinos Mavropanos scores an own goal in the 9th minute to restore parity for Aston Villa. And then, I mean, sad, and very unfortunate scenes. And then Gerard Bowen scores in the 24th minute to make it 2-1, which they carry into halftime. And I mean, it's typical of West Ham. They do not defend that well. They concede so many goals, and they ended up conceding that press from Morgan Rogers in the 50th minute and the 79th minute, which, when you see that goal in the 79th minute, typical West Ham sort of lapse in concentration, do not close Morgan Rogers down. He goes from distance, from a couple of yards out from the 18 yards box, beats Alfonso Areola in goal, and it's a sweet strike, which eventually turns out to be the match winner as they won the game by 3-2, 59% ball possession for Aston Villa, who had a total of 7 shots on goal with 4 on target. West Ham had 10 shots on goal with only 3 on target. It wasn't the final. The two teams weren't far apart, but it just boiled down to that Aston, when you in that bit of winning momentum, you sort of, there's something that carries you through, even when you're not having the best of days in office. We saw that particularly, again, for this Aston Villa side, when they were winning by 4-3. That was last week in midweek against Brighton and Hove Albion. So they were not at their very best, but they scored, as many as 4 goals, and it ended 4-3. So at the end of the day, it's 3 points in the bag, regardless of how many you've conceded on the other side. And then, then it begs the question how teams like Brighton and teams like West Ham get to score 2 goals against Aston Villa, whereas Arsenal struggled to even score that one. But it all boils down to how teams set up when they face off with Arsenal, really. But yeah, another sweet victory for Aston Villa there. Unai Emery will be a very, very pleased man there for as far as for what they've been able to do in the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's admirable, really. It's really, really admirable what they've been able to do. 9 wins in a row. I mean, that's really, really impressive. That's really, really impressive. And yeah, that's across all competitions, by the way. I think, I stand to be corrected, but I think that they are still in the, what is it called? They're still in the EFL Cup. EFL Cup quarterfinals. They are still in it. No. They're out of it. It's Cardiff versus Chelsea, Man City, Brentford, Newcastle, Fulham, Arsenal, Crystal Palace. Interesting. Have a feeling that Chelsea could go through against Cardiff. Man City will get the better of Brentford. Newcastle will get the better of Fulham. Arsenal and Crystal Palace, that will be close. You never know. Crystal Palace could make it through at the expense of Arsenal, or Arsenal going through. And then we could see either Arsenal versus Newcastle and Chelsea versus Man City, or vice versa, or Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, or Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal. I mean, anything can happen. Let's just have to wait and see. Those games will be coming, by the way, midweek and next week. That's for the game between Cardiff City and Chelsea on the 16th of December. Release Newcastle on the 17th on Wednesday will be up against Fulham. Then as well as Manchester City against Brentford. That's when that game will be played. And then Arsenal will play their game the subsequent week. That will be 2 days before Christmas. Yes, 2 days before Christmas. That's when you expect that fixture. Okay, quickly. The other game was between Brentford and Leeds United. Not much separated these two sides. Once again, I finished in a 1-1 draw. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I stand to be corrected, but could have scored in his fourth consecutive game there, with Jordan Henderson opening the scoring for Brentford in the 70th minute to give them the lead, while Calvert-Lewin scored in the 82nd minute to restore parity. It was a game of few chances. They all had, Leeds had an XG of 1.4. Brentford had one of 0.7. Brentford thought they had won a penalty in the first half, but upon VAR review, Dango Ouattara was judged to have been in an offside position before, I think, was it, what's his name? I'm forgetting the guy's name. Jesus Christ. Who committed the foul against him. It was a bit of a pull on him, and the referee had given, a penalty. But upon review, Dango Ouattara was in an offside position before a foul was made against him when that penalty was given. So it was ruled out and it stayed goalless. So we went into halftime with a barren draw. And I mean, both teams struggled to create chances, to have attempts on goal. I think the Leeds goalkeeper made one save that's a Perry, made one important save in the first half. I think the attempt was from Lewis Potter. That's what did happen or transpire in as far as that game was concerned. Anyways, so that saw out, all these Sunday fixtures in as far as the Premier League was concerned. On Super Sunday, Ka Garang says hello Garang, where are you joining us from? It's good to have you on the broadcast. Anyways, Shadow, hi Shadow, where are you joining us from, Shadow? It's good to have you on the broadcast as well. I hope you're doing okay. Really, I hope you're all doing okay. Apologies. Let me see. I hope that doesn't. I'm just trying to adjust my, Shadow says Africa. Okay. I'm in Africa too. I'm coming to you live from Kampala, Uganda, where it's 42 minutes past 11 p.m. So it's good to have you on the broadcast. Kindly like the broadcast, but also consider subscribing to the channel if you're new here and help us continue to grow. Anyways, the other game I want us to look at is from yesterday. And that's, you say me too. You two from Uganda, or you two from, it's 11:42 p.m., which is which? Are you looking forward to AFCON? What are your expectations on that front? Anyways, back to the Premier League. From yesterday, of course, we did preview. Uganda. Okay, that's beautiful to know. Good to know. Good to know. Thanks for joining the broadcast. What team do you support? Let me know still in the comment section. So yesterday we looked at the results between Chelsea beating up against Everton by 2-0. Cole Palmer and Malo Gusto, the goal scorers there. Then Liverpool beating up against Brighton. Hugo Ekitike getting a brace in that one to score his 6th and 7th goals of the Premier League so far. And then we saw Fulham get the better of Burnley in a game where I think Emil Smith-Rowe, Harry Wilson, and who else were the goal scorers in that game? Burnley losing by 3-2. And then the late kickoff between Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers. I can see Maman says he's an Arsenal fan. Shadow says he's a Liverpool fan. Congratulations on your victory. What did you make of Mo Salah's performance for his last game before he heads out for the Africa Cup of Nations, which kicks off, by the way, on the 21st of this month? That will be next Sunday. That's when the tournament officially kicks off in Morocco. Morocco, there are the host nations. The host nation for the AFCON, and also will be among the 3 countries that will host the 2030 FIFA World Cup alongside Portugal and Spain. Garang says hello again. Hi Garang, where are you joining us from? When I read the name Garang, it reminds me of John Garang, the former SPL leader in South Sudan. Are you from South Sudan? Damn, you're just yuppie. Okay, so. And it's unfortunate if that's what you feel. But so let's get to the game between Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers. I said this yesterday in the aftermath of that game, and I will say it again. I do not think I've seen a worse performance from Arsenal this season. Now, it's like for all the creativity they had in midweek against Club Brugge, and I understand the difference in context here in terms of team setup and how both teams went about the game. But for a team that created so many chances in midweek, I mean, even with the change of players, but also not with a loss in quality, but possibly an upgrade on quality in terms of what the starting 11 was, I mean, that was just poor. I mean, for a team that is almost desperate to win the Premier League title, you could almost think that, one, there's a bit of pressure weighing on their shoulders. Pressure in the sense of, I think, one, fear to lose the game or to drop points in any form or shape. Two, that also colliding with their desire to bounce back from that 2-1 loss to Aston Villa in as far as the Premier League is concerned. So in the end, what it boiled down to was this overly passive team without creating anything much. The game in itself reminded me of the Arsenal I watched last season. I watched that Arsenal team last season, and every time they went a goal ahead, it's almost that they had it at the back of their mind that, well, that's all that we needed. We needed the goal. We have it. We're going to defend and try and win 1-0. Eventually, it's the very reason as why they ended up with as many as 14 draws in last campaign, which cost them the Premier League title, because I said this, if they had won just 5 of those games instead of drawing, then that would be 10 points. And that was the difference between them and Liverpool, in terms of point difference on the Premier League table. Sadu Boda says, I want to know President of Uganda is going to leave Uganda or not. I have no idea that he's going to leave. I don't know if you're speaking to the context of the election or your inference is based on something else. News that I'm not privy to, but next year is election year. People will go to the polls to decide who the next president will be. But given that there's been no change for as long as there has been, I mean, it is what it is. He's not going to live for long. Okay, I mean, age is catching up with him. That's for sure, as it does with anybody. So I don't know if it will be natural causes that force him out of the seat, or he will choose to afford Ugandans what they desire in terms of a transition. You know, I do not know. I do not know. None of us. I keep saying none of us is tall enough to see what will happen tomorrow. But we'll just have to wait and see. Time is our best ally. Definitely, I'm not going for the elections. Okay. Why not? Why not? I mean, I think anyway. We won't discuss politics. It's not a political show, but I would understand why somebody would be skeptical about going to the polls. You know, I understand. I've been long enough around the block to understand people's skepticism in the process itself, for them to choose to stay away from it. But back to the conversation of the game between Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers. One, all teams seem to have taken a leaf or picked a leaf from Manchester City. For those of you that remember, earlier on this season, I do not remember particularly what match day it was, but Manchester City went to the Emirates Stadium and parked the bus. Eventually, the game ended in a 1-1 draw, with Manchester City taking the lead through Brad Erling Haaland, with Arsenal needing a late equalizer from Gabriel Martinelli, with Ebeleche Eze providing the assist to make sure that they picked up a point in that game. Meanwhile, it's Real Madrid have gone into halftime with the 1-0 lead. That goal by Kylian Mbappe. I can see Adnan Januzaj is giving that halftime interview. No, is it not Adnan Januzaj? It's Denis Suarez. Sorry, not Januzaj. Denis Suarez. So now, when Manchester City, and the reason as to why Man City did that, because that was the very first time we saw Pep Guardiola set up his team to play that way for as long as he's been a manager. No matter what team he faced, whether he was still at Barcelona, whether he was at Bayern Munich, when he was at Manchester City, for all the 9 years he's been there, this being the 10th, we had never seen Manchester City go about a game of football with that sort of strategy. You know, to say we'll sit back, we'll play with the low block and try to catch Arsenal on the counter. In other words, do everything it takes to avoid defeat. And they did it well, because even for Arsenal to pick up a point in that game, the goal itself came really, really late in that game. Now, ever since then, majority of the teams in the Premier League that have come up against Arsenal have used the same strategy. Aside from maybe Leeds, maybe Nottingham Forest weren't as conservative, but there were some to a certain level, but they weren't as conservative. Then Liverpool weren't as conservative, and Aston Villa. Those are the teams that I can remember off of my fingertips that haven't been as conservative when they come up against Arsenal. So when you look at teams like Brentford, teams like West Ham, teams like Crystal Palace, which other team? Majority of the other teams, the other opponents they've come up against in the Premier League, they've went with a low block. In other words, we'll sit back, look to exploit Arsenal on the counter, or when we get a set piece play or a long throw in, things like that. That's been their strategy. And Wolves got that blueprint and brought it in yesterday's game. Sit back with all 10 players behind the ball. For those of you that remember, their first shot on target came in the first half with Wang Hee-chan going on a counter-attack. Lucky for Arsenal, David Raya was alert to the challenge and he saved that. On the other side, Arsenal expectedly were dominant on the ball. But what did they do with the ball? Knock it around to their own frustration, that then they attempted sort of forced passes in the form of through passes, which were poorly executed. Again, it continued to be frustrating. If you want to understand the epitome of that frustration, the withdrawal of Martin Zubimendi showed that frustration on his face as he walked off the pitch. Then, in the first half, he himself, after getting tired of them knocking the ball around, sideways, midway, he attempted a through ball. I think he was trying to find a Bukayo Saka, and it was an overweight pass that, simply went out, So, really, that was the definition of it. To the extent that even the manager himself, who most fans criticize for that kind of performance, or because it's not the first time that kind of thing has happened. But like I said, for me, the performance reminded me of everything Arsenal tried to do last season, or did last season, overly passive for nothing when you're dominant on the ball. I did not think they were quick enough. I did not think they were effective enough in the final third. They did not try to go from distance the entirety of the first half. And it sort of cost them. It really, really cost them. So much so that even the manager himself, Mikel Arteta, was frustrated with his players. He said as much. He said, we're passive and we committed blunders in areas where we shouldn't have. Okay, Garang decided to write some Arabic. Unfortunately, I'm not familiar with the language, so I can't read out your comment, but I hope it was a kind one. So, if you're an Arsenal fan, a neutral fan, it must have been a boring game for you. It must have been a frustrating game for you. Arsenal did not have a shot on target until after the 1 hour mark in the game. And guess who it was from? Declan Rice, from outside of the area, with Leandro Trossard providing what would have been the assist in that sort of phase of play. Arsenal was so poor that at the end of the final whistle, I did not think any player deserved to be awarded man of the match in that game. Now, eventually it was given to Bukayo Saka because of his contribution in the 2 goals that Arsenal got to their side, albeit they did not score. Because Wolverhampton Wanderers scored 2 own goals to their detriment. Sam Johnston in the 70th minute, and then Mosquera in the 4th minute of stoppage time. Really, Arokodare had scored in the 90th minute to restore parity. So I did not think anybody deserved man of the match in that game. In any case, you would have looked to the Wolves side to say, these guys, the way they kept their discipline, the way they kept their shape was really, really impressive, because the first goal they concede is from a set piece. Ball hits the inside of the crossbar after Sam Johnson getting, a brush of his fingertips to it. Not enough to affect the ball's direction, and then he bounces off the back of his shoulder to hit the back of the net. Then the second goal is Bukayo Saka brings in a cross, which Gabriel Jesus appears to get his head onto it, and I think it's deflected off the header of Mosquera to hit the back of the net for them to win the game by 2-1. If you had pressed me to give my man of the match award to an Arsenal player, I would have gone with Leandro Trossard. Why? Because when he came on, and that was in the second half, he's the only player that successfully attempted through passes that could break the lines. He had a pass for Gabriel Martinelli. He had another for Victor Gyökeres. He had one for Declan Rice. And I think one was for, Miles Lewis Kelly in the area, or if not Gabriel Martinelli again. Now, in some cases, the disadvantage was he was playing those passes from very, very deep, in the area. Garang says, I know about football, but I don't even read too much football stuff. Okay, what do you know about football? And in any case, if you're a fan of it, what team do you pay allegiance to? Do let me know down in the comment section. So, I would have picked him as my man of the match, because for all Arsenal had attempted, he was the only player that was more effective when it came to their through passes, those line breaking passes, attempting to pass the ball between players' legs to, well-timed passes. Victor Gyökeres had the best chance in that game, his best chance of in that game, with the pass coming from Leandro Trossard, which was looped over, a couple of defenders. He brings it to his chest, brings the ball down, and gets a shot away. Unfortunately for him, it was a couple of inches wide of the mark. In earlier on, I think in the first half, there had been a cross from Bukayo Saka, which he could not get to on time. And then in the second half, there was an attempt on goal by Gabriel Martinelli that goes wide. It was never meant for a cross for Victor Gyökeres, but he thought if he had moved fast enough, maybe he would have gotten his body to it, to guide it to the back of the net. But like I said, it was not an attempted cross. Gabriel Martinelli was attempting to go for goal himself. Let me talk about something different. Does your talking way too much for me? Gang, you'll forgive me, but it's a sports channel, it's a football channel. We get to talk about football. Other topics are footnotes to whatever the discussion is. It's just what it is. So really, in that sense, I saw the frustration among Arsenal fans in their reaction online, in their reaction for the clips that we've seen after the game, for those who are doing watch-alongs, and the kind of pressure that befell the Arsenal fans as they waited for goals to come, and those goals kept eluding them. Like I said, it took more than an hour for Arsenal to get a shot on target, and I kept saying it, almost shouting it out as though they could hear me. Unfortunately not. That they needed to try and shoot from distance, that you need that to take an action half a second earlier, as soon as you have a sight on goal, to try and create something. Have an attempt on goal. Maybe the goalkeeper parries the ball in a dangerous area, and you get sort of the rebound and score from that. Then they were not moving the ball quick enough. Like I said, they were overly passive and doing it at a very slow pace. When you're up against a team that is playing with a low block, and you need to be very quick in your pass execution if you want to cause disruption in that sort of shield of a setup. Two, you need the kinds of players that are capable of moving a body or two out of the way to create that space that you need to have a shot on goal. And unfortunately for Arsenal, the only player that was attempting that was Bukayo Saka, to, of course, less effectiveness. I thought at one point it's the kind of game that needed Noni Madueke to come on. Mikel Arteta thought otherwise. But even though they eventually managed to win, I still thought they needed him, because those are the kinds of players that they brought to try and help them win such games. Ebeleche Eze had started the game, did not have much effectiveness as well. He was involved in the shambolic performance that the entire team had displayed, really, in terms of being overly passive to no effectiveness. It's basically just was that. And then it's a game that needed Leandro Trossard, like we saw, like I've highlighted for you. He had those, bright moments, that sort of gave Arsenal at least a chance to try and go for goal, even though they never managed to get clinical enough to convert some of those chances that he helped them create. So when you compare their performance against Wolverhampton Wanderers to what Manchester City have done today against Crystal Palace, you ought to feel for this Arsenal side. Manchester City is breathing down their necks, and they know that Man City are capable of unseating them from the summit of the table. Arsenal themselves have a very, very difficult run of fixtures that is going to be coming their way in as far as the next 5 fixtures are concerned. And I say this as a kind reminder that, one, their next game is going to be away to the Hill Dixon Stadium against Everton. Now, that's not an easy game. Then they'll play Brighton, they'll play Aston Villa, a team that beat them. Then they'll play Bournemouth, and they'll play Liverpool. Now, the next set of fixtures, 5 fixtures, are come against teams for whom Arsenal dropped points against last season. That's the worrying bit. That's the worrying bit. With Everton, Everton, they never got a win against Everton last season. They had a goalless draw at the Emirates Stadium and a 1-1 draw at Goodison Park. Not good enough. Against Brighton, I'm trying to remember what kind of result that was. I'm trying to remember what kind of results they did record against Brighton. But yeah, again, they were both draws actually, 1-all draws, home and away. You know, so that's two teams for whom they failed to win last season against, whether at home or away from home. Very, very disturbing fact. So, and like I said, if they want to win the league title this season, those are the kinds of results that they will need to cut out. Those are the kind of results that they need to better this season. They need to cut out those draws, convert those draws to wins. Then when it comes to Aston Villa, this is a team that has already beaten them this season. And last season, there was a 2-all draw between the two sides at the Emirates Stadium. Again, another draw for the Arsenal. Told you all about the Villa, my man outscoring their XG once again. Yep. Hi, Ali. How are you doing? Good to have you back on the podcast. So it was a 2-all draw between the two sides at the Emirates Stadium last season. The question is, can they then manage to convert that to a victory? Then Bournemouth. That's a team that beat them home and away last season by 2-0 at the Vitality Stadium and by 2-1 at the Emirates Stadium. You know, again, can they convert those bad results into positive results for them? You know, so you got beat by Bournemouth home and away. Can you pick 6 points? Can you reverse that kind of performance and pick 6 points against this FC Bournemouth side this season? You know, it's a test we're going to wait to see if Arsenal can pass. You know. But like I said, it's not looking pretty for them. Then after that, it will be the game against Liverpool. You know, the game against Liverpool. Last season, it was a 2-all draw between them and Liverpool actually, that was at Anfield, and it was a 2-all draw at the Emirates Stadium. Okay. So, out of the next 5 fixtures that they are up against, upcoming in the Premier League, they did not win any of those fixtures last season, whether at home or away from home. Oh, sorry, they won only one. That was away to Aston Villa by 2-0 last season. Now, this season, they've already been beaten by this Aston Villa side by 2-1. Against Everton, it was a draw, home and away, 1-1, and a goalless draw. Against Brighton, 1-1, home and away, draws. Liverpool, 2-2, draws, home and away. Lost home and away against Bournemouth. You know, that's how bad they were. So it's up to them to then correct those mistakes if they think they want to change their fortunes this season. If they cannot make that happen, and I'm not talking about, you know, getting one win and then drawing the other against those opponents. I'm talking about beating them. I'm talking about them beating up against Aston Villa. I'm talking about them beating up against Everton, beating up against Brighton, beating up against Bournemouth, entertaining Liverpool and beating up against them, not getting a draw. You know, Pedro is asking what's happening. You know, we're doing, you know, the review for that game between Arsenal and Wolverhampton Wanderers, which took us into what their next upcoming fixtures are, which against the next 5 teams, they only won one game out of the 10 games in those fixtures. That's home and away for the next 5 opponents in the Premier League. That's against Everton, Brighton, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, and Liverpool. You know, that's what's happening. Ali said, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle bells all the way. Oh, what a fun it is to see Villa win away. Yeah. I mean, they're in great form. That's 9 wins on the spin for Aston Villa. I do not think there's a better informed team across Europe than they are at the moment. They're just scintillating. They're really, really winning their games. Anyways, Pedro says it's very unexpected to say, but it's incredible. But it's incredible reality. Aston Villa are genuine title contenders. Except now, This is what is happening this season. And I'll say it again. Mathematically, many teams are still in this title race. Because when you look at the team at the summit of the Premier League table, and that's Arsenal, who are only 2 points ahead of Man City and 3 ahead of Bournemouth, they are about 8 points ahead of Chelsea. Now, that sounds like a big margin. And then 10 ahead of Crystal Palace, Liverpool, Sunderland, and 11 ahead of Manchester United. Ordinarily, you'd think that's a lot of points. But given how this season has gone, a team just needs a run of consistent results. The team that we're calling title contenders at the moment, Aston Villa, a lot of people forget that they failed to score, I think, in their first 4 games of the Premier League. That included a 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace, a goalless draw against Everton, and a goalless draw against Newcastle. Really, they lost another game in between there, you know? So, and whereas it did not look like doomsday for Aston Villa, it did not look pretty for them on the Premier League table. Now, ever since then, they've gone on a very scintillating run in which they've lost only 1 game, and that was against Liverpool by 2-0. And look at where they are now. Now, if any other team, anywhere between, let's say, 8th, and that's Manchester United, on the Premier League table, or even Everton, or even Brighton, in 10th place, if any of those teams were to go on a similar kind of run of results like Aston Villa have done, then you will see them either equivalent with Arsenal or ahead of Arsenal or pretty close with Arsenal. So that's all you need. You need a good run of consistent results, which has eluded teams like Chelsea, which has eluded teams like Liverpool, eluded teams like Crystal Palace, eluded teams like Sunderland, Man United themselves, and Manchester City to a fair extent, you know? So, when you look at the table of victories and look at the draws and look at the losses, that's quite telling. Man City and Arsenal have won the same number of games, 11. And yet Man City have lost 4 games this season in comparison to Arsenal's 2. Where is the difference? In Arsenal's 3 draws compared to Manchester City's 1. Very marginal. In other words, Arsenal lose 1 game, and then Man City win, and then Man City suddenly go above Arsenal. It's that simple. So whatever they do next, and this is why I keep saying that for a team to win the Premier League title or any league title, you need not just your hard work, but you also need luck. Luck in decisions, in results, with injuries, and then with what your opponents do. Because right now, even if Arsenal were to keep winning, at some point, they have to pray and hope that some of their title contenders falter along the way for them to sort of have a healthy gap between them and those teams. Let's not forget, at one point, Arsenal have been 7 points ahead of Manchester City. And suddenly, what happened? They drew against Sunderland, drew against Chelsea, lost to Aston Villa. That was 7 points lost in 3 games. You know? And that's how Manchester City caught up. You know? Pedri says, realistically, from last season and specifically this season as well, 2 wins in a row can shift you to top 5 places in the table. There is 4 points between 5th and 12th place. Surprisingly, it's game week 17. Exactly. Like I keep saying, when you look at the table standing and you read those teams without looking at the tally of points, or you may look at the table and say, and say, it's too bad for Liverpool to be in sixth. It's too bad for Man United to be in eighth. It's too bad for Tottenham Hotspur to be in 11th and Newcastle to be in 12th. It's too bad. But then when you look at the tally of points and see the point difference, then that is when you wake up and realize, oh, if these guys win only 2 games, really the teams above them drop points, then things will have flipped. I made the example, and this was at the end of match day 15. Man United came in the game against Wolves, really they were 12th on the Premier League table. By the end of that game week, they were 6th on the Premier League table. Liverpool were that down on the Premier League table. After their win against Brighton, look where they are. So that is what tells you everything you need to know about this Premier League table. And I do not think we've seen anything like it in recent memory, at least not to the best of my recollection. There's always been a healthy gap between at least first and second, and then third and fourth, or a healthy gap between teams in the top 4, and then the next set of teams, that's usually between 5th and 8th, and that kind of thing. And then things fall down subsequently, down the table. But this time around, things are really, really different. For example, take a look at West Ham United, who are 18th on the Premier League log. They are 6 points off of a 13th place team in Fulham, because all the next 2 teams, below Fulham are at 20 points. But that's just 2, games. That's 2 wins that they need. Of course, goal difference notwithstanding. So anybody can catch up to anybody. Anyone can win at any time against any opponent, and that's the beauty of the Premier League, my friend. Yeah, it's a beauty of it. But like I said, this season feels different. That's why, by the way, I think Arsenal fans get a fever every time they drop points. That's why they catch a fever, because they know. A couple of weeks ago, when Arsenal drew with Chelsea, we were talking about Chelsea being title contenders. And what happened subsequent to that? They drew against Bournemouth, they lost to Leeds, and what was the other game? And then suddenly, they sort of skipped out of that frame, and before you knew it, Manchester United caught up with them. And yet, at no single point have we discussed that Manchester United were title contenders this season. Of course, by measure of their own history as a brand, of a club, and their own pedigree, you can't put them in the title conversation based on those facts. But in terms of their overall squad quality, their performances on the pitch, you would not want to think they are in the Premier League title race. Not really. But when you look at that table, they're only 11 points behind Arsenal. And go back to the table, Premier League table of, I think, 2002, 2003, when Manchester United bounced on to win the Premier League title. Arsenal, I think, were at the top of the table. I don't remember who was second. Man United were about third, but there were a good number of points behind. So, time and again, we've seen these things. Go back to 2013, 2014, when Man City win the Premier League title ahead of Liverpool's Brendan Rodgers. At one point, Liverpool were far ahead. You thought it's theirs to lose. And indeed, it was theirs to lose, and they lost it. So anything can really, really happen. Pedri adds to say, this is because football is developing. It's about the team spirit now. The quality is increasing. Big teams can easily be beaten. It's not about the money anymore. Best example, Liverpool, And I don't know if we are going to be able to see it again, or it will take a bit of time to happen. You remember the time when Manchester City won the Premier League title and they were 18 points ahead of a second place team? Liverpool did the same thing in their 2019-2020 season. Then the subsequent season, I think Manchester City were 17 points ahead of a second place team. I do not think we're going to see that kind of thing anytime soon happening again. If trends carry on like this, suddenly not this season, you know. But also, let's not forget that in the last I think in the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen about 3 Premier League titles go down to the wire, to the final day of the season. You remember 2023-2024 season? It was down to Arsenal Man City, final day of the season. Then 2022-2023 campaign, Man City Liverpool, down to the final day. You go back to, I think, the 2018-2019 season, down to the final day. Liverpool, Man City, you know, we've seen that trend. So I have a feeling this season may not be much different from that if the 17 games are a sample space to carry on by, you know, to draw our conclusions. So that can equally possibly happen this season. So yeah, I do agree with you, Pedri, on some of those points. Meanwhile, Real Madrid are yet to, you know, to find their next goal against Deportivo Aves. It's still 1-0. We're at the 1 hour point mark of the game. But yeah, Deportivo Aves are not making it any easy for this Real Madrid side. Pedro says, oh, okay. It's because of the Barca curse. When Chelsea won against us, they started dropping points. I mean, those insinuations have been made, but it is what it is. You know what's funny is that today you get, let's say, Chelsea being consistent for 5 games. Then when they lose their consistency, then Manchester City pick up their own consistency. If let's say if Man City lose it, somebody else is picking it up like that. That's sort of been the trend, you know. Anyways, guys, it's been 1 hour and 7 minutes of us doing this. It's already 20 minutes past midnight. Allow me wrap it here and call it a day for Sunday. And I wish you a blessed night. Enjoy the rest of the game between Real Madrid and Deportivo Aves. So yeah, it's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you so much, Pedri. Thank you so much, Ari. Thank you so much, Garang. Thank you so much, Shadow. Thank you, and every single one of you that was part of tonight's podcast, those that liked the broadcast, those that didn't like but were part of it, thank you so much for your lovely contribution towards it. Allow me wish you a blessed night, and let's meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. To digest whatever else there is. We'll look forward to the Man United game between Man United and FC Bournemouth. We'll talk about that game. We'll maybe I'll give you an update on what's to come in as far as the EFL Cup, because 3 of the quarterfinals will be played midweek next week. That's on Tuesday and Wednesday respectively. Whereas the final quarterfinal game will come the subsequent week, particularly because Crystal Palace have an engagement in the UEFA Conference League during the course of the midweek this week. That will come on Thursday. So please, we'll keep you updated or abreast on those schedules respectively. Otherwise, stay blessed, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.